Hello, America. Black pupils, white survive. Other species bodies with two eyes, quality aspects in nature. Distinct, non-distinct simultaneously, slash hyper simultaneously. For that showing us an extent of its hyper invisible but still discernible distinct identity of simultaneous nature that comes with its identity of relationship to its complete identity of relationship to itself and the value of that, like being able the value of being able to discern how there is what is has all the different species with quality aspects in nature, distinct, non-distinct, simultaneous, and put that for the hyper simultaneous. This is what we are discerning with the invisible but still discernible parts of speech, of our languages, of English grammar. But see, the sciences share an identity, and I'm not a lawyer, but there are proofs that the bar is still criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Each of the sciences has syntax as a certain type of victim slash hyper victim, where and how, tactically replaced, was what our founders communicated to us and was what nature communicated to us at the youngest ages, relative to how at each age has against it multi-front in positions that were designed to keep more and more and more things hyper additionally collusions and styles and natures needing to keep other things, others ourselves blamed. Right here, where the scientific value of a human fact should be nature breaching method is and has been replaced inside the founders, inside the communications of our founders. So please, I forgot to put the link. I don't know if I put a link. But Fox News, next to Fox Connecticut News, are people involved with wire crimes with Wethersfield Police. Fox Connecticut News is in Hartford, Connecticut. A whole bunch of people next to Hartford, Connecticut's Fox Connecticut News are involved with the intelligence families that are involved with vertical and horizontal confessions that are used by a breaching method at countries A through Z, hyper criminally foreign influenced, and only known to blame other things, others capable of blaming other things, others themselves, or being sensed themselves, or anybody, even as a majority, even as a whole country together. In other words, and their syntax is sensed and adapt and maintain styles inside. And as what can't defend that and afford to be, let alone to protract short words with convictions proper, with where theory is forced, let alone with convictions, let alone with convictions with guilt, let alone with convictions with guilt, leaving out the breaching method inseparable from all things. Boxing, it was itself the scientific value demonstrated to us by nature itself, because of how it is one of the things that is true always. What the summary value of all the laws that were entrenched before America's founders were born, northern colonies and southern colonies, and at the respective nations that were involved with remote use slash s of all locations slash areas and states, with that only one part of it. Also, already there had been demonstrably only capable of being overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and worse than war crimes roles. But people using phrases like war crimes, depending on also where and how this breaching method needs all sides. It needs roles with criminal and citizen natures of positive treatments and negative treatments. Tactical terror from how nature does, the ways we know. But then additionally, no, but security comes. from a nature of industry that can appreciate the difference between peace or hyper peace and sensing. If all of a sudden we thought was peace, with only criminal and seditious natures of peace or of enforcement, we can't enforce anything while still the prisons and the campuses have roles with psychiatry and with a whole bunch of different countries, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought together, putting fake transcripts in the databases, wire crime acts and methods that different police forms have together, and where and how they have roles with being having been used remote, showing how to do it by pretending, bringing up the name of the FBI alone. It's not just the FBI, CIA. And that's recorded just where they use the right to lie, where they don't have the right to lie. A James Comeyism recorded one of the ones involved with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, where how the branches of government grouped and together. They have predicate acts, but facts, methods grouped and together as styles, where there are victims / hyper victims who learned how to respond to that through the breaching method. And through all exceptions in exception nature show that there are a whole bunch of hyper additional, parent motivations and real ones. But even the real ones only stay the way they are. And, time collusion / S because of the hyper overriding one, the hyper programming, the suits and ties count as exceptions as collusion and sensing for the breaching method. In other words, which is distinct from, but it's non-distinct from, for example, how and why really populations are at borders problems with countries that have means to fly across the world. We're still, the suburbs were designed for the torture, extortion, and slavery of our founders. There's a sick, nasty nature of debate regarding that is totally reliant upon criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. Readings of American history, of reality, of principles of reality. It is principle, James Madison's plan. They have this replaced. All pays. In other words, psychiatry has roles with all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slanders, and predicate acts with facts into databases and acting on all sides of people's houses roles. They don't even understand the extent of, but it's recorded. Vertical and horizontal confessions are recorded, and right through social media platforms, Facebook pages of the Britain Superior Court and of Hartford courts. They demonstrated it was true after the World Trade Center attack. Those people had been involved with organized crimes through time since I was a kid, intercities and intra-cities, with ones involved with retired Wethersfield police chiefs, and like people with the name O'Brien involved with the intelligence community. A whole bunch of people tied to them and their educators that were in my grammar school, but I didn't go to have classes with them, who are increasingly collusion / S with people next to each of the campuses I went. In other words, in this town, and they have the name Mendez involved, intercities, and next to Montessori School in West Hartford. There's also people with the name O'Neill, a teacher named O'Neill in West Hartford. Involved also people with there's Eric Burgess and a Joseph Dennis, and they have roles with intelligence people. But they don't even themselves, and the intelligence people don't know too. It's hyper foreign. It's mayors through time. Increasingly, people tied to a former mayor of Gold are involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and putting predicate acts, little magic tricks in databases, and their roles with Russians, Ukraine, and planting evidences at sides of parks, and at parks, and with whiting forensics, and their roles with digital offenders of kids, and other natures of organized crimes with retired police chiefs in houses near me, involved with police switching and forging names, and with a Bob Chase confessed, a Phil Cololo is involved with it. These people a bunch of ways too. They have other police forms. They are approved Secret Service too. A bunch of people, and there are proofs that the people, the military is also tied to a Burstein, and their narratives by with FBI regarding groupings of criminal enterprises, tactically wrong, and needing to pretend other. No, as collusion slash S with the black pupils, whites of eyes. We are a human species body of individual bodies with all grouped differences, plural. In demonstration of that identity that is not our species body, is not the others, but it is anyway. And it is beyond that. So we can discern that as a scientific identity, a scientific value that we have to name. There are proofs that pantheism was not just, it was not before, but it was about this. The science of the hyper invisible was still discernible. In other words, the hyper simultaneous. How I changed to Trump will change a lot of the FBI and military. I don't want to use the term deep state. Everyone uses the term deep state. This is deeper than the foundation of America. Our founders have their communications replaced in our face. Even Judge Napolitano misses it. And so how could they interpret Marbury versus Madison properly? They can't. Real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. The breaching method showed everyone. All difference. These are even great people stay evil. Where it comes to regarding the relativity, for example, of the hyper evidential, we need to call it out. We need to not separate how nature communicates with what actually is. See, nature doesn't want us going to the store and buying plastic bottles of water. Nature wants us to understand how it wants clear water. And all these different species. In the rain, when it rains, the worms, we used to come out of the soil and just walk into all the puddles and walk into the fresh bodies of fresh water. Now all the bugs would not be on the surface, but nature's providing to the fish. Worms are just walking into the soil. Walking into the bodies of water, not just into the puddles. But they're not even in the soil anymore to do that. There are proofs that is having problems with the birds. We're not noticing it yet because of all the other things they can get away with eating that just happen to be there. See, we're on systems that separated the colonists and the Native Americans from the Earth's actual means, from abroad. But it did that to those countries already too. That's why they don't even remember the history of English in England properly. In other words, in other words, we have to pay attention to all that is discernible here, and where it is being replaced. We have roles with predicate acts with facts at countries A through Z as styles of it, and then they have things like wars going on, not by accident. They have to speak about serious things by acting serious, by faith. And then valuing that only having been known. So in other words, the poor president had to even ask a AI to draw what to do in the thing, because no one will put plans forward, because no one is capable of a nature of business. Like, for example, that is capable of valuing sequence and valuing the hyper evidential. Our founders communicated for us to understand how the business was forced. All natures of industries and the difference of their roles with the breaching method, it's not just on paper. Once it had that locked in, everyone sustained since some ancient times. It was born right through the founding of Russia. It was entrenched. Right through the founding of America, it was entrenched. That's why the suburbs of America to Russia to Ukraine They looked almost exactly the same. I'll donate a song for them to work together with the rest of the species body in Ukraine. In other words, for example, we had to we need to have a new nature of industry. At the same time, we'll make these negatives and the hyper positives and or will sense. And in the countries without nuclear weapons and without understanding all the impositions, even that peaceful nuclear energy causes, could be an earthquake, could be a tidal wave, took out a whole nuclear thing. Every country sickly distinctly had a breaching method, hurting them and measuring and maintaining other things, others ourselves, blamed for that, forced to be blamed for that, for those things it caused and keeps. Otherwise, the bodies would be sensed for the breaching method through their own people. Like when anyone denies the value of how we have black pupils, whites of eyes. In other words, there are self-valued roles recorded with use /S of America's founders' words, self-valued, leaving out and changing what they communicated and sensing, not like as a nature, not pretending not to be able to fathom and really not fathoming relative to how and why we have to attend to this breaching method, that how it got away with it, and how it shows people that had collusion /S with it, as all do, with their logic, like replacing James Madison's communications. I couldn't even believe how the number is so high of how many people Judge Napolitano said about how many people he had when he first went up to be a judge, when he was first a judge, I believe in a superior court. And I believe it was in the hundreds. How many people he had for just an arraignment in one day. I fought in New Jersey one time at Chop World. I don't know if it's even there. They had a whole bunch of in other words, the infrastructure of the suburbs was designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, while being a theater, not realizing more and more, because more and more having been given more and more means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures only if to self-value roles with use /S of criminal and city sense natures of positive means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures, with the breaching method that uses and used difference, therefore names, like the difference of the name of the guilt with the F.B.I. There are still World Trade Center predicate acts. A whole bunch of people tied to WFSB connected to Channel 3 News, and as them and their security, they have roles with foreign and domestic military, foreign and domestic intelligence, leaking as their roles of the World Trade Center attack with a whole bunch of different countries before the attack, in it, and since, as is recorded by they won't. In other words, they also have their police forms sources in courts and military, foreign and domestic. They use digital and mail crimes and wire crime methods where they fake conversations into databases too. At the Wethersfield police station, pretended through the news that that I had a conversation with them, or went to the police station when I was a kid. In other words, I was arrested and I had a conversation with them, and they tried, the kids that did go to the police station when I was a kid, they made it look like I had a conversation. They put me in a car with my neighbor, a Cololo, and they put a Chris Walters that wasn't even in our school, and they made it look like we knew each other. They made fake exception where they were involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, a whole bunch of different countries, and names at the campuses and next to them planting predicate acts with all sides of criminal and civil cases. Then increasingly shown they need to hide that by what things, the breaching method that has roles with that. These are the same names involved with the World Trade Center predicate acts. Fake conversations with me about that Connecticut's WFSB has. So they have been recording, confessing, demonstrating, confirming they have roles with police forms and agencies that use the rights to lie, but they don't. A Joshua Julian is also with Facebook itself and with New Britain Superior Court with sexual and medical offenders of kids, involved with other natures of organized crimes with him too, and predicate acts on my street, identity theft, fraud, slander. I never had a class in my life, never saw him in a campus in my life. Increasingly, people in my area have roles with him and people tied to him. And a Robert Rodriguez who brought up the principal upskirt nature's picture campus to me, with other natures of organized crime too. And you guys left out the confessions of that principal to me. And you have roles with them with the digital and wire crimes where they're replacing and changing what he said. He's one of the ones involved with the FBI director, Robert Luskin, in a bunch of ways, with other child abusers, leaders of kids, 3 years. And time use of it, /S roles with the people that had roles with that forcing that done. And then again, they have roles of other natures of organized crime too with the campuses and with Facebook and with the readings of statutes and precedents with prosecutors and judges recorded in criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions are out, shown to have the needs to hide, and with the FBI too, involved with New Britain Superior Court people a bunch of ways, and Harper Court's family members with the foreign and domestic military. The relative body dumping spots, even if any of them or all of them were made up, like the serial killer of the Howell guy. And that guy himself, too, is involved with people from Sandy Hook, involved with child offenders and murders in Wethersfield, involved with other natures of organized crime with those names, involved with predicate acts with facts, with the Wethersfield police, fake conversations with me as a kid, and then as an adult, too. I never had a word, another, and as the people, Mendez and DeMauro, and their educators. I never had a class with Mendez or DeMauro. In other words, their educators have roles with predicate acts, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and with a whole bunch of different countries at the same time. As people involved with Saudis, with the WFSB, World Trade Center attack, predicate acts roles, a whole bunch of people from Wethersfield campuses involved with Elm Streets and Rocky Hill and Wethersfield, with child offenders and putting predicate acts in databases. And they'll tell you this. You have to ask them right. Otherwise, you can repeat fake things. Vaccines. They just change it fake what everyone says anyway. So there are whole predicate acts methods that are only capable of being by the identities of the law. I shouldn't have to beg you guys to get them on paper, one name and sequence. They've been using crime methods to bring people before courts lying about their motivations because they're screening the motivations of their roles with other countries. And a breaching method itself uses all sides of criminal and civil cases and news at the same time, and the court's names and people, the intelligence tied to them. Increasingly, people with East Hartford tied to New Britain Superior Court, and a CRT, Community Resources Training Place, and houses and businesses next to it, also involved with FBI, state police, other police forms, their family members, intelligence on off Central Connecticut State University, involved with inter and intra cities, involved with child offenders, even with people misbriefing governors and presidents, putting whole fake transcripts in databases too, then showing they need to hide that too. The whole use of location /s tied to databases in ways no one fathomed. Then further at the campuses ones, and all that right back to and as collusion /s that no one wanted, but they were right there at all locations /s. Every single place the human species body has a body since some ancient times. The uses of difference? Should we have the same color eyes, different color eyes, same time? So I'm not even a lawyer, but Nature, I'm going to show us. Nature shows us. There's a predicate acts for facts delivery system method upon us. Where there is exceptions, without exceptions, it's also a criminal insidiousness nature delivery system method. Guys keep it syntactically that self value too, because you guys have not had reason and reality spoken for properly to you guys. A through Z, countries A through Z. That's why. No, in other words, our founders' communications are replaced. Communications are simultaneously greater than and more finite than what it said, and with active relativity, in ways we are not being allowed to. We are not being afforded means to, appreciate. Offensively, the two of the prisons and names next to the state corrections offices. Cololo and Demoro have roles with people with the military increasingly, like on Valley Crest, and conjunctions to it, involved with the name Demoro, involved with foreign military and overt criminal enterprises, and side people from Saudi Arabia, I don't know the names of, but associated with it, and with a whole bunch of different countries. It's the same problems there because these are also ones putting fake things in databases and the vertical and horizontal confessions are manifest to other people too, right? With their manifest to where and how the breaching method is recorded by nature itself, keeping people blaming other things, others ourselves, for what the breaching method caused, which shows us needs to cause syntactically to counter our hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise people who disbelieves. I'm not a lawyer. Lawyers too. Stacking collusion / S with all natures of crime scenes too. And fake motivation screening. They're improper. They're incapable of affording precedence readings and appreciation the way they did and do. And of affording to be discerned properly or appreciated properly. Exception nature the way nature shows us to appreciate them. Mass faking exceptions, pretending not to realize. Mass delusions, the science's names have. For this breaching method, we could change that. Vaccines, just things.